What's going on, everybody? So this is part two of the video series on why I think R. Kelly will either beat his case or the case will just be dropped altogether. So picking up on reason number four, we have to look at the dictionary definition of abuse and compare it to criminal abuse and how the powers that be are trying to use the media to make it look like it's one thing. So to do that, we just basically have to look up the word abuse, and basically, according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, abuse is defined as a corrupt practice or custom, improper or excessive use or treatment, language that condemns or vilifies, usually unjustly, intemperately, and angrily, or physical maltreatment, or deceitful act, which is apparently an obsolete definition. I think there's some other definitions, which is to put to wrong or improper use. So I only wanted to look up the definition just so that you can compare it with the criminal charges that he's being hit with. Just because a person has abused someone doesn't mean that they should go to jail for it. And the reason I say that is because you have to look at the criminal statute. Now, what R. Kelly is being charged with, he's being charged with 720 Illinois Compiled Statute, Chapter 5, 11 through dash 150. And basically, it goes to say a person commits criminal sexual abuse if that person, one, commits an act of sexual conduct by the use of force or threat of force. So let's stop here. So there is one allegation, I believe, there's one allegation of where a person is saying R. Kelly has forced himself onto her, and that's Lanita Carter. And we're going to get into that, but for right now, I want to put that aside and say that besides that Lanita Carter, there are no other allegations that I know of people saying that R. Kelly forced themselves onto them. Basically, from what I can gather, women wanted to be associated with R. Kelly because of one, they wanted to live the rock star lifestyle, they wanted to be wild and out, or two, because he was simply just giving them money, he was paying them. So to me, it seems like, based on the snippets that I've seen, none of them are saying that he forced himself onto them sexually. If you listen to them, to me, the conclusion I draw is that they were around him because and some of them even said it. I liked him. I guess there's a third reason. They either liked him as a person, or they liked something about him, or the other reason is that they wanted to live the rock star lifestyle, or the final reason is that he was simply giving them money. So this charge, number one, doesn't really stick. The second charge basically commits an act of sexual conduct and knows that the victim is unable to understand the nature of the act or is unable to give knowing consent. I think this goes into having sex with minors because minors can't legally consent. So there's tons of allegations of R. Kelly having sex with minors. You can easily Google those and and find them. I don't know if they're true. Apparently, a lot of people believe that it's true. Uh, there's also allegations that he had sex and he married Aaliyah, and that there's evidence of it out there. But in light of all that, and this is going to sound a little crazy, but it really doesn't matter. And the reason it doesn't matter is because some of the points I pointed out in the first video, which is ex post factos and double jeopardy. All the allegations out there are old. They're not new. They're old allegations of stuff that happened in 1990s. So therefore, you can't come back because of ex post factos and possibly double jeopardy. If these claims were made in the first trial, you can't come back and bring these same claims because they're mute. You can't really bring them forth. But if he does this after 2015, which is when that statute came out that I spoke about in the first video, then yeah, then you can prosecute him on having sex with minors. I think the other situation where this applies is if a person is drunk, They don't know what's going on, and then you ask them to have sex. They could be drunk or high. They don't know what's going on. You ask them to have sex, and they say yes. Well, then now you just committed criminal sexual abuse. So then it goes on that says a person commits criminal sexual abuse if that person is under 17 years of age and commits an act of sexual penetration or sexual conduct with a victim who is at least 9 years of age but under 17 years of age. So that's pretty much self-explanatory. And again, there's plenty of allegations of R. Kelly doing that, but all these allegations are old, for lack of a better word. They're not new. Now, keep in mind, now I'm not trying to support R. Kelly, and I don't condone any of the stuff that he's been that he's allegedly done or that he's accused of. I don't support it. I'm just pointing out obvious flaws in this case. And the one thing I don't like is when people are prosecuted in the media, because I just really think that's unfair. I think that everyone should have their day in court. And then just moving forward, a person commits criminal sexual abuse if that person commits an act of sexual penetration or sexual conduct with a victim who is at least 13 years of age but under 17 years of age, and the person is less than 5 years older than the victim. I think this section is pretty much the same as the others, but I actually read some case law where there was a person who was 17 and they had sex with a 16-year-old, and they had to be put on probation, criminal probation, and they had to register as a sex offender, which I thought was crazy. But that was way before this law was put in place. I think if and I don't make the laws. I'm not a legislator, but I think it's a little ridiculous when two kids have sex and then one of them goes to jail and one of them has to register as a sex offender. I think it's a little ridiculous, especially if the age difference is just 1 year apart. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. And then it goes in. The rest of the statute goes into sentencing, so on and so forth. So the fifth reason, which I actually already stated several times, is the fact that there's no new allegations. Basically, ex post factos comes into effect. You can't make it a new law for old crimes. And then the sixth reason is basically Michael Avenatti was arrested, and Michael Avenatti basically drove this prosecution to some extent, because he's working the media and he's coming out in the media saying I have these new tapes, and he's meeting with the state's attorney, which is another problem. We'll get into that later. He's meeting with the Illinois state's attorney, and the clients in this case were his clients before they prosecuted R. Kelly, before they indicted R. Kelly, rather. And that becomes a problem because he's not licensed to practice law in Illinois, as you've seen R. Kelly's lawyer come out and say. So that this creates a lots of problems. But basically, even Michael Avenatti basically comes out uh, and basically says 90% of the case or the points that he's made in R. Kelly's case is BS. He goes now 90% of that is going to be BS because it's always BS. 90% of the time, always, whether it's R. Kelly or Trump, and the list goes on and on. And then he goes, but 10% of it is actually going to be true. And then what's going to happen is that it's going to snowball. So basically, what he's doing is that he's telling you, he's coming out and he's basically coming at you with BS. And what he's expecting to happen is for that BS to snowball. And he's basically expecting people to come out of the woodwork with bogus claims. And this is the problem that I have with social media. And people think that because you have all these people coming forward that they're, they're that the allegations must be true. That's not necessarily the case because a lot of time I guess people have forgotten of the concept called jumping on the bandwagon. If you've had a relationship with someone and that relationship turns sour, and then all of a sudden you see an opportunity to profit from that bad relationship, an unscrupulous person is going to come forward and jump on the bandwagon to make these crazy claims. So that is going to play into something I'm going to talk about in the next video of prosecutorial misconduct and the fact that he wasn't licensed to practice law in Illinois, but yet he took all those folks on as clients. And then after, and I don't know if this is 100% true, but it sounds like after he took those folks on as clients, Kim Fox basically solicited more people to come forward, and then they prosecuted. So there's no new evidence. All we have is that Michael Avenatti, who admits that he's bringing BS, to social media in order to prosecute this guy. And then basically they're, taking, there's no new evidence, and they're using BS to build a case. And I think that's going to play into prosecutorial misconduct and some other issues. But I'm just going to go ahead and end this video right here. It's going on too long. I'll see you in the next video.